And welcome back to LoadedTV.com. I'm Ken McKim here with Maddie at the SPCA of Northern Nevada. And it's good to see you again, Maddie.
It's good to see you too. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being on. So we're going to talk a little bit about today about injuries, common injuries for pets that you see quite often, that pets come in here and they have chipped nails and they've had other problems. So what advice can you give to pet owners as far as how to deal with these themselves, because it doesn't always rise to the level of having to go to a vet?
That's correct. My first thing I'd have to say is do not panic. First thing somebody's going to do is they see blood or they see them choking, they start to panic. That does not help the situation. You want to keep yourself calm and keep your pet calm. Second of all, if they're bleeding, like if they've chipped a nail, if they're bleeding, they're still alive. So it's always treatable.
If you can pump blood, then you're still alive, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So, for example, if they chip a nail, that could be a situation, because if they break that vessel in the nail, they can actually continue to bleed out.
Right.
So one of the things I recommend to keep in your household is styptic powder. And you just put it on the nail. It burns a little bit, but it cauterizes that vein instantly. It's really cheap, really affordable, and you can get it at any pet store.
You can. And styptic pencil, for those of you old enough to remember this, is what they used to use when you would cut yourself shaving, too. So it's for humans and animals, same thing.
Yep.
Now, when you're trimming their nails, that's an important point to bring up. They always tell you not to trim too far up the shaft of the nail because of that.
Exactly, because when you're cutting the nail, you can actually see that vessel, which is called the quick, and you clip right before the quick. But if you clip that quick, they will continue to bleed out for a while.
And at that point, what would you do if you didn't have the styptic powder?
I would apply pressure to it, and at that point, use your best judgment. If you see after 10 minutes of pressure that the blood has not stopped, take them to your veterinarian, because they will need to stop that blood flow. If it has stopped and it clotted on its own, I'd say no worries and just keep an eye on them.
Just keep an eye, yeah.
Yep.
And they're probably going to be favoring that paw for a little while.
Actually, they probably won't.
They won't? Okay.
Because as soon as it clots, they forget they even had it.
They just forget all about it.
Yeah, because they don't feel it anymore. After it clots, the nerves are blocked and they don't even notice.
See, animals are much better about that than
oh, yeah,
us.
they're much better.
We cut part of our finger off, we're not going to forget.
I'll be crying for days.
So what other kinds of injuries do you typically see?
Another one is lacerations, so common cuts and abrasions that you see in the household, trying to climb under the fence, trying to get up on counters and falling. The big thing with that one is, again, clean it out with some warm water and some antibacterial soap with no alcohol, because that's going to sting or burn.
Okay.
After that, if the blood stops, no reason to take them. If it's not deep and it's not at least half an inch, into the skin, wash it off, let it be, and don't try to close it up. You want it to keep it open, especially if it's another animal bite.
Okay.
If you close it up, you're just harboring bacteria. So wash it out, keep it open, and keep an eye on them. If it stops bleeding, you're good to go. If it continues bleeding, put pressure on it, take them to the veterinarian.
Okay, so you don't want to cover it up with bandages and make it airtight and to keep dirt out. That's what the first instinct is to cover it up. To cover it so that nothing gets in there.
But you're actually you're harboring bacteria, and you're going to cause an abscess, which is a much bigger vet bill.
Yes.
Yes, don't want to do that.
And now, something that you were telling me just a couple of minutes ago off camera, we were talking about animals choking, and that often that they can still breathe around whatever the object is that's caught in their throat, but of course you want to get it out there. And you told me that under no circumstances never do the Heimlich maneuver on a pet.
Please don't do that. If you do the Heimlich maneuver, not only can you break their sternum, but you can rupture their stomach. So don't attempt to do the Heimlich maneuver. Their bodies are not shaped for that. If they're choking and they're not turning blue, but they're coughing, you look down their throat. If you can see the object, like a broken toy or a bone, try to reach in with your 2 fingers and pull it out only if you can see it. If you cannot, do not attempt. You can actually rupture their larynx like that. So do not attempt to pull anything out of the throat if you cannot see it. If they're choking, and they're still breathing, take them to your vet immediately. They'll need to use an endoscopy and pull out the instrument. If they're choking and they're not breathing, take them to your veterinarian immediately. Just stop whatever you're doing. Don't even try. Don't try CPR, because if you're not trained in doing it on an animal, you will crush their rib cage, even if they're a big animal. So Yeah, don't try to do that.
No, it's a bad idea all around.
Exactly.
It makes you wonder why we don't have a pet ambulance service, right?
There are some veterinarians, especially in the emergency animal hospitals, that in that kind of case, if they're close enough, may come out to help you, especially if they're stuck. But in a choking case, you just want to get them to the most immediate veterinarian, even if it's the emergency vet. Okay. Choking, people think, of 2 or 3 minutes. They have quite a bit of time to get to the vet and take care of them. but especially if they're breathing. If they're
Right.
not breathing, do what you can to clear the airway and call your vet immediately. Make sure they're prepared for you to come in because you don't want to be waiting out in the lobby. So.
Right. And of course, like you said before, the first thing, the most important thing to remember is not to panic because animals can sense fear, they can sense panic, and they will pick up on that. And it's not going to do them any good and certainly not going to do you any good either.
Exactly. Just keep calm and keep them soothed, petting them, calming voices, and whatever the trauma may be, if it's serious, get them to your veterinarian as soon as possible.
And of course, if you come to the SPCA of Northern Nevada and you adopt your soulmate in pet form, they're going to already have received top-notch care, so they're going to be well taken care of. And Maddie, thank you so much again. Really appreciate having you on the show. And don't go anywhere. There's a lot more on LoadedTV.com coming up. Stay tuned.